It's our weekly sports episode. Well, you might as well call it our infamous podcast about sports and stuff. Where on this podcast, you get to hear a little bit of information about what's going on in the sports world, what's going on in the video game world, a little bit of the technology information, get a little bit of a music knowledge chat, two of our personal faves that we do on the show, the artist spotlight, and of course the infamous ass of the week. So stick around. You might actually enjoy the episode. Well, luckily I'm not by myself this week. Past podcast has returned. I got my co-host with me again, Dimitri.
Back at it again.
We were in limbo of LA future and dreams of whether they would still have their draft pick or if it would be donated to the NBA gods. Mm-hmm. But it looked like that was a survival. So we'll get into that story as always. As always, like I mentioned, past podcasts, these podcasts are posted on Spreaker.com. So if you want to go and check out any previous episodes, you're more than welcome to do so. Anyone that's aspiring to become a podcaster, definitely check me out as a startup. If you want to get help on doing podcasting, I've been an open resource with that. And that's been kind of I almost want to say my calling, but it's been just something that I found to be a niche. These podcasts are recorded with the Blue Yeti microphone. Have that link in the description or in the. This week was a very, I won't say uneventful sports week. It was a different sports week for sports. That's kind of the nicest way to put it. The NBA finals are finally set. Of course, we got to wait a couple of days until June 1st, which is a given. And the teams that are pitted to be in the finals looks like we're doing, as they've been calling it, Warriors versus Cavs Part 3.
The trilogy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So to kind of give a backstory before, leading up to these series, the Warriors pretty much swept the Spurs with no problem. After Kawhi Leonard went down, mm-hmm. It was kind of a fight of, okay, what's our next move? You had LaMarcus Aldridge kind of trying to step in to be a leader, but it wasn't really his strong suit. So it kind of left Golden State to kind of just dominate the series. It leaves a good question that I've thought about, because Steve Kerr won't be coaching.
As of right now, he's not going to be coaching. They've said that if he gets better, then he may jump into the series. But as of right now, no, he's not going to be coaching. So this might be a series where it actually shows
how good.
It may show that Mike Brown's coaching and not Steve Kerr. Okay. That might come up, but we'll see, because they're a very coached and well-run machine, well-to machine.
I won't, that part I won't disregard or ignore, because the question that was on, and I want to say we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. There was the question and the uncertainty of how I don't know why I want to say James Harden, knowing we're not in the playoffs. How Kevin Durant would look during, with the injury, if he's 100%.
He's been looking nice. He was looking good against the Spurs. He really started to step up. Him and Curry had a 40-point and 34-point game together. Yeah. So that shows that they could play together.
Right.
And he's definitely been playing better. He looks healthy.
Yeah, and I feel like gives them a slight edge, because what's interesting in Cleveland's case, I'm gonna bring that up in a second, because I do want to remember the 12 and the 13. Let's see, 12 games won versus 12 of 13 games won, and I'll explain what I mean in saying that. Mm-hmm. But on the Eastern Conference, you had the Cavs pretty much
gentleman's sweep against the Celtics.
Kind of gave a fluid run. They had one game where LeBron did not have his best performance. I think he scored 11.
Yeah, 11.
One of his lowest scoring performances, and they lost that game. But despite that loss, they still were able to go ahead and finish them off at 5. Mm-hmm. Isaiah went down game 2.
He didn't play game 3, 4, or 5.
Right. So after that was kind of it was kind of just they were kind of running through their stars. But I mean, Marcus Smart stepped up and played pretty good.
In Game 3, he did. He had 27 points in Game 3.
Yeah.
And then they showed up in Game 4 too.
Right.
When LeBron had 4 fouls in the first half.
Yeah,
they didn't extend the lead when he was out, and that's kind of when you knew that they weren't going to win the game.
Right.
Because they had to extend that lead when he was out.
Yeah, because you got to take advantage of that time period. Like you have
6 minutes left in the quarter.
Yeah, and they just turned it off.
Yeah.
So that goes back to the infamous turn it off and turn it on the switch thing again.
Pretty much, yeah. And Kyrie Irving showed like.
Yes, I mean Kyrie Irving showed why he's a valuable player to Cleveland, because everyone, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but we forget about Kyrie when we shouldn't. And I mean, you think about last year. Yeah, LeBron got the block, but I mean, Kyrie hitting that 3 was kind of like the tell-all, be-all of that series.
Yeah, pretty much. And he balled out throughout that whole series.
Yeah. So this is now going, and this will return to what my reference was earlier with the 13 and 12. In the Eastern Conference, Cleveland swept the first round, swept the semis, took 5 games to win this conference finals. On the Western Conference, it was
to take it back to Moses Malone, 4-0, 4-0.
Just flawless. Yeah, it was like a flawless run. Especially I think the Blazers series was the interesting one, especially when it was, Damian Lillard kind of saying it mildly, saying, "Yeah, I feel like we can win it in 6." Not to take the team away. Mm-hmm. They did do their part, but they got swept with no problem, and the Jazz really didn't come close in any of their games.
No. The only game that they had competition was against the Spurs in Game 1 when Kawhi Leonard was there.
Yeah.
He got hurt. They were up like 20.
And
Warriors came back, which was still an accomplishment itself, even if Kawhi wasn't there, to come back from 20 against the Spurs.
So now we're going to go to, and it's almost evident or obvious to do this because it's part of the sport. We're going to make our predictions. And I'm going to let you pick first, only because I really am going to be long-winded in giving an answer to this. And that's just me being guilty.
Mm-hmm. So with this, yeah, definitely. It makes you think back to, because the last 2 years, what happened with it, there was an asterisk next to each finals. You could say, like, the first year, you could say Kyrie was out, and so was Kevin Love.
Yep.
Second year, Draymond Green got hurt. I mean, not got hurt, got suspended. In Game 5. And then Bogut and Iguodala got hurt in, like, 6 and 7.
Yeah.
This year, nobody's hurt. There's no asterisks. There's no excuses that any side can use.
Just a new addition.
New addition. Also, you could also say new addition with Kevin Love, too. He didn't do anything last year in the finals.
This is true.
He was having 25 and 12 against the Celtics in the conference finals. So at least he's balling this year. So it should be interesting. But I say Golden State in 6.
6. Okay.
I say Golden State in 6.
All right. So no sweeps.
No sweep. Yeah, I was saying about that. Like, they're not focusing on a 16-0. That would be difficult.
I feel like that's the $1 million question that's being addressed, is whether it's a no sweep zone. So if it's a no sweep zone for you, in saying that you'll say Golden State, I can't be the Stephen A. and try to go against the grain in saying I feel like Cleveland can win, but what makes or breaks Cleveland in the series, and this is long-winded past podcast 101. I feel as though LeBron is one of, if not the best player in the NBA. As far as MVP goes, he didn't have it this year because it was just this wasn't
indisputable the best player in the NBA at this time.
Right. So now you're at this point of the stage, and you have Kevin Durant playing at his max potential. Klay Thompson's quietly in a role of just being there, and Steph Curry's kind of just
he's balling.
He's playing his good role. Draymond Green proved why he deserved to be why he was an All-Star this year.
All-NBA, third-team All-NBA.
Right, being All-NBA. So with those factors coming into it, I mean, it's Golden State's to win, but as we saw last year, they had a 3-1 lead and blew it. So
there's more pressure on Golden State.
Oh yeah, it's a higher expectation because it's all right. So I'll give my pick first, and then I'll elaborate with it. I have Golden State winning, in 7. I feel like this is going to go 7 games. And the only reason I'm pushing 7 games is because now with the format, because I believe
it's 2-2-1-1-1.
Yeah, they changed, because I think they changed it. Last year was the first year they did it, or was it its third year?
I think they changed it
when this trilogy started.
Yeah, before the trilogy started. I think that was like the first year.
Okay, gotcha. All right, because I've always thought about them change when they reformatted and changing that rule. That kind of played a role into who has that better advantage, especially when you get.
That was unfair for like
for the home team. Oh yeah,
for the best team. Yeah, because then the lesser seed got like 3 games at home in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So all they had to do was steal one of the first
steal that first game,
and then just win all your home games, and you're good to go.
Yep. So that's, retooling that style. I'm okay. I like the new format. Mm-hmm. So I mean, now with it being current, it's going to be Golden State, first 2 in Golden State, next 2 in Cleveland, and then Golden State, Cleveland, Golden State. So finishing, if Golden State can win the championship in Cleveland, that's a huge media story. They
won the first one in Cleveland,
right?
In Game 6. I just think, like, if it goes to Game 7, that's a lot of pressure, and anything can happen in a 7th game.
Right.
I think a lot of this series also has a lot to tie in with, to do with, how will LeBron James' shot be?
Yes.
Like his shooting, because his shooting percentages have been good throughout the playoffs so far.
Uh-huh.
But he was a little bit bad the last 2 games against the Celtics. Actually, last 3 games actually against the Celtics. His shot hasn't been as good.
It's kind of been a no-show.
And then, let's see if Kevin Love also shows up, like how he showed up in the conference finals against Golden State, because he's had a bad run against Golden State since he's been in Cleveland.
Do you feel, and this is kind of putting the pressure on, but it's kind of almost adding to the story. Do you feel that Kevin Durant, that LeBron has the one-up on Kevin Durant, even with this lineup being the way it is? Do you get what I'm saying when I ask that? Because
he's had a one-up on Kevin Durant. I believe I know what you mean. Like, he's always had to put like good stats against LeBron, but LeBron's like always won against him. Every time LeBron's like won.
Yeah.
Even when they played against each other in the finals in 11, I think it was 2012.
Mm-hmm.
They beat him in 5.
Right.
And LeBron's actually done pretty good against Steph Curry too. So
they
ended up joining with each other. I think a lot of the pressure is on Kevin Durant and
Steph Curry. Yeah.
Who do you think there's more pressure on, Kevin Durant or Steph, in the finals to show up?
Finals, believe it or not, I'm going to say Steph Curry. And the only reason I'm saying Steph more, okay.
I agree with you, actually.
The interesting thing is, the obvious pick would be Durant, because Durant does not have a championship. The difference is Steph got a championship, and last year it was like that was the next best chance they had to getting another championship, and they had the 3-1 lead. They blew it. There was uncertainty as to how the team would be this year. They were the top team. They're back, and they basically played. What they did this year with regular season is they played autopilot and played, look, let's just solidify our spot as a 1 seed.
To try to get chemistry also.
Right. Because you got Durant coming in, you had Zaza Pachulia, which you weren't sure was an offensive force.
David West.
Yeah, so you had a lot of guys. And the thing that's interesting, Shaq gave, every time they did the whole Shaq and the Fool and had JaVale McGee on there, JaVale McGee actually has been a helpful role player on their team. So, I'm going to say it's more on Steph strictly for the fact that if they don't win, he's the first guy that you can kind of look at and say,
oh yeah, he's going to get it.
Yeah, so, and I mean, and I know it's like interesting because we're talking about it from this side, but we've both picked Golden State. So then that comes to the question of, well, where does that put LeBron and how does that conversation come about? And I'm going to tell you why I'm asking that after you break that down.
I think LeBron. You talking about breakdown what, the Golden State side or
the Cleveland side? As far as with LeBron, if LeBron comes out as the loser,
I feel like LeBron's kind of like in you could say like a win situation. The only way he like loses in this situation is if they lose in 5. Say like they lose in 5, he doesn't do well.
No show.
Like he doesn't do well. Or they lose in 6 and he doesn't do well like in the closeout game. He just doesn't do well throughout the series.
Right.
If he takes it to 7. He has a good game. They barely lose, kind of like how the Warriors barely lost last year.
Right.
Then I feel like nobody's really going to go hard on him like that.
Right.
However, if you're trying to compete with Michael Jordan and the ghost of yesteryear, then you're going to have to because this would actually solidify him as one this would solidify him even more in that conversation.
That conversation.
Because he just passed Michael Jordan in postseason scoring. So if he gets a ring against this super team,
then
he solidifies him more. But I don't know. I don't think he's gonna get like dogged on for losing this series though. Okay. If they did lose.
Right. Okay. Now the reason I say that and the reason I bring that up is because I've had this conversation and I've heard this conversation and it's been talked about over and over, and I feel like I'm gonna be the difficult person in settling this discussion once and for all, and I'm probably gonna be odd in how I do it. There has always been the conversation of who's the best basketball player in the NBA, like who's the best, greatest player of all time. Mm-hmm. Everyone gives different answers for different reasons. Most people, if you were 90s, 80s, 90s guy, you say Jordan. If you were late 90s, early 2000s, you say Kobe. You may give it to Jordan more because you knew Jordan was the heir apparent. Some people who looked at basketball old school would say Kareem. You have some people who say Magic. Then of course you got the current. I'm not even gonna say millennials. The current fans who kind of watch basketball and keep up with basketball, they'll automatically say LeBron James. So my answer I always give is you always have to look at the era. And when it comes to eras and when it comes to how the game has transpired, currently LeBron's the best player. But would I make him the best player, like the greatest of basketball? No. It's tough to do because you have to look at it as players played in different styles and like rules change based on players and how their style of play is. Like I think even with Iverson, when Iverson was playing, they changed the way dribbling was done as far as palming, crossovers, because it was a carry and things of that sort. So rules were retooled based on players. Like defenses, you didn't have zone defense back in the day.
Yeah.
So.
Nah, I definitely agree with what you had said. Like what you had said, like it's definitely. I think to be honest, like if you're LeBron, like all he wanted to do was actually at least put himself in that conversation of like, is he one of the greatest of all time?
Right.
Which I could say that you could say like, yeah, he is one of the greatest of all time.
Right.
How long that list is, that's up to interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you. It depends on era, because I like how you pointed out Kareem. Like not a lot of people point out Kareem when pointing out the best player of all time when he has the most points in NBA history.
Yeah.
And he played like 20 seasons. He had 5 championships with the Lakers and 1 championship with the Bucks.
Exactly.
So like he's one of the greatest of all time. I would probably still say Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never gonna ignore or take away Jordan. What Jordan did was unfair. Like, I mean, you go to 6 finals and you win 6 championships. That you've done what you're supposed to do.
Never lost in the championship, and also they showed a shot like the last 24 seconds of either the game, either regulation or overtime, for like it's either the game's tied or to go up.
Yeah. Like
to make a shot. Mm-hmm. He was 9 of 18, so 50%.
Yeah.
LeBron is 8 of 23, which is 35%.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference there. So when it's money time, Jordan will make that
show
shot,
up. Yeah.
Or he'd actually end up passing it for the shot to be made, which is what he did with Paxson, Steve Kerr.
Yep.
He did that a couple times. Like last year in the finals, LeBron gave the ball to Kyrie, and Kyrie like dribbled. He didn't get assist off of it. Kyrie just did it himself, and like kind of bailed him out.
Created, yeah, that's true. And that's like I said, it's not I'm bringing that up because it's not like I'm making it as I said earlier, this is tell all be all. I'm just saying it as we have to know how to use that term when we say greatest or who's the best, who's the top, because it's like you talk about top, like when that, like for instance, if you say top shooting guards. If you do your top 5 shooting guards and you don't mention Michael Jordan, something's wrong.
Well, definitely. Michael Jordan's first, and then you say Kobe after that.
Exactly. So it's how you break down and look at players. Because a lot of people look at it as everyone already has their biased fans. Like a lot of people get mad with me because I always talk about Pistol Pete. Mm-hmm. But he didn't have a long career, so you really didn't know much about him as far as the game. So that's why I brought that question up. It's not, I'm saying it wasn't really on a right or wrong basis. But it was just a general thought that crossed my mind.
But something that hurts him a lot too is the 4 finals losses that he
has. That always is a standout. And then between when he was like, no one thought about it, the fact that in LeBron when he was young, when they played against the Spurs, they got swept. Yeah. No one ever talks about that series.
They kind of give him a bye with that one because they said that he brought like a ragtag crew with him.
Yeah.
However, they still made it to the finals though. So I'm saying like
he did his job.
Like he gets credit for like taking the finals, but Yeah, definitely. So, because that was like only his 4th, 5th year in that league. So
right. Now we did mention it, and you did share it with me before the podcast, so I do appreciate it. On the Eastern Conference, we talked about Cleveland. I know we're harping playoffs, or finals, but one thing that's going to be important that's going to come up soon is the offseason. Mm-hmm. And a big name that's addressed who did not play the last 3 games of the Boston series was Isaiah Thomas. And the question now is coming with Boston as how can they fix what was wrong, I guess is the best way to put it. Your $1 million factor is you have one of, if not the top underrated point guards in the NBA, in Isaiah Thomas. There wasn't really much certainty as to where he was staying or what he would be doing. But they so I'm going to read these and kind of breeze through it, but they bring up the top 5, how to fix the Celtics in 5 steps. The obvious, of course, draft markup. Matter of fact, you shared this story, so I'm putting you on the spot. I'm passing it to you.
Right, so there was a little article that says how 5 easy steps to fix the Celtics.
Yeah.
One is they have the number 1 pick, so go ahead and draft Markelle Fultz. People are saying he's the best coming out of the college, which I agree with.
Mm-hmm.
Try to trade for Paul George at the right price. You don't want to trade everything and end up
get nothing.
End up worse than how you were to start with.
True.
Gordon Hayward's an unrestricted free agent. He was coached by Brad Stevens in college, so go ahead and try to sign him over the offseason as a free agent.
That's a smart option.
Make the hard decision with Isaiah Thomas. So either way, decide what you want to do with him. So do you want to re-sign him? What are you going to do with him? So you just got to make a decision with him. And one is wait on LeBron, because, he is getting older. But I understand that's not enough. Just wait for him to start going down the hill. You got to wait on him, but, you got to still try to stackpile, get better. Kind of like how you could say what Jordan did with the Pistons.
Yeah.
Or the Pistons did against the Celtics.
Yes.
You still wait for them to get older, but you still have to find a team that's able to beat them. You got to create a team that can counter what they do.
Oh yeah, and the last part that you mentioned, it is so funny you mentioned that because they talked about that in, I want to say it was at 30 for 30 they did with the Celtics. Well, I'm sorry, not the Celtics, with the Pistons when they played against the Bulls, because it was kind of a passing of the torch. Mm-hmm. It was time. It was like, okay, Jordan, y'all done did, Detroit, y'all done y'all thing, y'all dominated, but it's our time.
And then they swept them too.
And I mean, it was, a lot of people made a lot of fuss because they, they didn't like the fact that the Pistons didn't shake their hand. But I'm like, you got to understand, there was sportsmanship, but there was also respect. Mm-hmm. And I think, it kind of played a role in the long haul because there was a big controversy. I think it was the 92 Dream Team when Isaiah didn't play.
Just because of Michael Jordan didn't want him on the team.
Right. And, I mean, it was kind of a given because having him on the same team, and especially that fresh, that new at that time, it's a little different. Of course, now the NBA is more AAU-based. I know that's a sidetrack from this conversation, but with Boston trying to rebuild, there's not much rebuilding they need to do because Boston got a good end of the stick if you think about it. The reason they got this pick was because of Brooklyn. And if I'm thinking of this correctly, this is the Brooklyn trade that sent Garnett, Paul Pierce, Jason Terry, I believe. Yeah. They were all going.
The best part of this trade is they still have their first round pick next year. I'm like, whoever was doing this trade with Brooklyn, I hope they're fired.
I believe that was Billy. I'm tempted to say that was Billy Knight, and he's no longer there if I'm not mistaken. Because they were talking about, they broke down Brooklyn.
Got robbed.
Yeah. Brooklyn is in a struggle, and it's going to be a struggle for quite a while. Because, I mean, the only thing that they can really work on that it's kind of a pick of the mill is they got to work on their work based on free agency. And free agency, even with that, it ain't the best because you still have to also have the cap space to get whomever it is you're trying to bring in.
I believe they have cap space, but the thing is with the league and how it is now, you're not going to win. You're not going to win a title or get close to a title with only one superstar.
Facts.
And people in the NBA know that.
Yeah.
So they're not going to just go somewhere without anybody there. And
Brook Lopez there. I tried. I really tried. No, right now you only got Lopez. Jeremy Lin was injured most of the year.
I'm saying free agents aren't even trying to go to LA. And LA
True.
has a little bit better young talent than Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So I'm saying there's no hope for
You're
Brooklyn.
right.
There's no hope.
So we're going to do draft talk. We're going to go into the Diallo story in a moment. But first, I want to go ahead and give you your moment of excitement because I know you were unsure, uncertain as to what the outcome would be as to whether the Lakers would get the second pick. I believe. Did you? I'm trying to remember. Did you text me or did I? It was some.
I texted you. Yeah.
I was like, okay.
I was like number 2.
I was like, okay, we're safe. We're good. They at least solidified there. But and I mentioned this last week on the podcast. Majority of the draft picks, as they were chosen for the lottery picks, were as scripted or as expected. There were a few that were kind of like hit or miss. I know they were uncertain because I guess Joel Embiid, they set him up there, and as the commentators were talking through the picks, I think Sacramento had got
the Kings
2
got
picks.
The third pick, and then that dropped the Philadelphia Sixers back 2 spots, and they ended up just swapping with them.
Yeah, and they still ended up, still solidifying that third pick. Fun fact, and I shared this with my sports group, a lot of people didn't know that the draft lottery for this year's draft was slightly similar to last year's draft as far as the 1, 2, and 3 picks. LA had the second pick last year.
Just swap them.
They swapped 1 and 3. Yep.
Yeah, if you just turn it upside down.
Because Philly had the first pick in getting Ben Simmons. Second pick went to Cleveland, LA, and y'all got Ingram. And the third pick went to Jaylen Brown. Yeah, Jaylen. And sidebar with the playoffs, and I'm going to be quiet with that. Jaylen Brown, I'm hoping he didn't take that fall personal in Game 5. Yeah. Because that was an interesting scene happening because it looks like, I'll say this too, Boston fans showed respect at that game because they really do not. They despise LeBron. Yeah. And it's made clear, that was made clear when LeBron first played for Cleveland before he made, quote unquote, the decision. Mm-hmm. So segueing into decisions, because I had to make sure I did the segue the right way, because I was and I'm probably going to be aggressive and still in this story, because Dimitri and I were talking about this story, and we were waiting to hear. So in the NBA draft lottery occurred, and then players who had declared for the draft had to make a decision as to whether they were going to stay in the draft or whether they were going to go back to college. I'm going to kind of segue and give a little bit of a back history, and then it'll lead to this story. We had Frank Jackson? Frank Jackson from Duke. Mm-hmm. He was indecisive on whether he was going to go back or stay. He ended up staying in the draft. Mm-hmm. So by him staying in the draft, that solidified and made it obvious of Trayvon Duvall's decision, and that's why he went to Duke. Yeah, because he was determined if he was going to be on a team, he would be starting more than anything. So him going to Duke, and I said this on last week's podcast, I'm unsure, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's a one and done.
Trayvon Duvall? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he'll probably be a one and done.
Yeah, so, and then with the other big man from Brooklyn, he's going to Texas. And I feel like he's the one and done too.
Mohamed Bamba. I believe so too. He is lanky.
Yeah, he can, but he can move. So I love that about him. That's the one thing that I will admit that I enjoy about watching him play, because they showed. I always think about it. It was a video. I don't know if you saw it. Him and Jalik Felton played against each other, and it was literally just a back and forth. You would just see,
athletic.
Yeah. So I mean that'll be a good scenario, and then it works out, especially with their big man going to the draft. They don't have him listed very high in the draft.
Jared Allen,
yeah,
he's very nice too. He's very lanky as well too. Mm-hmm. So that's probably a little bit why he went there.
Yeah. So we'll keep it in the family since we're Kentucky guys. We're happy about this, but we're glad it was finally said and done, because it was like a pick and choose of what was going to happen. Because Hamidou Diallo did go ahead and pull his name from the draft.
Like 20 minutes left.
So it was one story that was online that said that the players had until 5 p.m. on Wednesday. Then, of course, as I was doing research, it's like they had, and I think we even talked about it, they have until midnight. So stories were kind of circulating. Diallo's 50%, 50-50. He's unsure. New York had a practice, and Bam was there, and he wasn't. And so it ended up turning out eventually. And I think I even mentioned this to you. I was like, he's probably going to go back to school.
Yeah.
And so he confirmed that he is going back to Kentucky to go ahead and solidify his spot as a guard. And also, it's going to benefit him because we've mentioned this numerous times. And correct me if I'm wrong. This is a center. You have more of a big man draft coming next year.
Yeah, definitely. You have more of a big man draft coming next
year. More forwards and centers, yeah.
And always with Kentucky, there's always scouts around watching the team, especially with Kevin Knox going there, which is another person who's going to be highly watched.
Yeah.
So especially there's a lot of 5 stars on that team.
Yes.
So in which case they're going to be getting watched a lot next year.
Oh yeah.
So I think it was smart for him to come back. Kentucky usually makes a deep run as well too.
Oh yeah.
So the longer you are in the tournament, the more owners
shine
get to
you
see
get.
you.
Yeah.
Because I read this article where owners they're more comfortable with picking. They're more comfortable with like their staff picking like a U.S. born player,
right?
Who they see like in the tournament, rather than an overseas player. Like say if you're the GM and you pick an overseas player and they end up turning out not being well, you end up being fired.
Yeah.
If you pick up somebody who's a U.S. born player who the owner liked, they liked them too. So how are you gonna get fired off of that? You know what I mean?
True. And I really think Diallo's going to be a good. I mean, I see him being a top 10 maybe lottery for next year.
If he comes out and his shot is decent, like 38%, 37%, something around that nature,
he'll be all right.
He'll be all right because he's very athletic. So as long as that shot's like going in, he'll be good to go. And he's supposed to be he's going to be the starting shooting guard.
Yeah, he'll be starting. And then as an added bonus, Calipari gonna play like Calipari plays his players based on how how it's
up and
meant
down
to be.
Team. They've kind of played like NBA style game already, up and down.
Yep. So we've been waiting to see what was going to happen with this story because it kept coming up and kept being addressed, and we kept wondering what was going to happen. He made TV appearances on TNT for a while, and it was still an uncertainty as to what would happen with Chris Bosh. But per pending documents, pending legal behind the scenes, family members, things of that sort, Chris Bosh and Miami are finally going to have their divorce that they need to have. That's the best way I can. So Chris Bosh is currently 33 years old. Mm-hmm. He has not played a game since February of last year, based on due to his blood clot issues, and he's been on the roster, just kind of working through the medical side of it and the legal side of it, because it is what you call, it's a true definition of what you call a one-off instance. They've kind of wanted to see what would be the outcome. The factor of why this has been delayed, and this is reading the story makes this important to me because now it made sense before, but it really is kind of what's delayed it, is the guaranteed contract. Because he's guaranteed $52 million over the next 2 seasons, and it's gonna be basis of insurance. By having him on the salary cap, they couldn't really do anything with replacing him because his money was still on their cap. And now they can remove him, and they can go out, because that kind of makes Miami a good target in the free agency sweepstakes a little bit.
What would be very funny is in reading this, right? So if he plays more than 25 games next year for another team, his salary cap would return to the Heat's books, so they would end up paying potentially face luxury tax penalties. Ooh. I kind of hope that he finds like a treatment and plays more than 25 games. I just think that'd be funny.
I don't see how he can't. Okay, so all right, I got to get back in. Let me get back in basketball mode and remember, when you get with a team, you got to get on the roster. You got to go through physicals.
I believe they have you before they even sign.
Before they sign you, got to do physicals.
They'll put you through physicals, especially if there's a question.
Yeah,
they'll probably put you through physicals before they even sign you.
So teams look at him, they give him the physical, they give him the green light to play. Unless the blood clot issues become massive, I don't see him. He's still...
Well, under the new CBA, a panel of doctors selected by the league and the association would determine whether a player with potentially life-threatening medical condition would be cleared to play.
So it's almost like I guess you can call it their version of a concussion type thing.
Yeah, kind of, but a little bit more serious probably. Because that's a panel, so multiple doctors.
They're gonna make sure that you get the proper approval before you get on the court and take any chances. Mm-hmm. So that'll then lead to what I always do, which is our question and answer period after a post or a story. Do you feel as though a team will pick him up? And if so, I'm not gonna say name one team because that's like huge. 5 possible places he may go if a team were to pick him up.
If a team were to pick him up, that's very difficult because you have to take the chance to. Let's say he's healthy. They find out that he's cleared to play.
Yeah.
Like, where would he end up going?
Yes.
You'd have to think of teams that are kind of like need like a big, you could say.
Okay.
And what teams kind of need bigs? I don't know. That's a very good question.
Beyond LA.
LA, I'd be mad if they picked him up just because they picked up 2 people last year who were very questionable.
Mozgov. You're still on.
So I don't want to talk about that.
I got you. My bad. Too soon.
Maybe OKC.
Okay. Yeah, true.
They kind of need like a shooting big, you could say.
Yeah.
Washington.
That is true.
Washington will probably be a
because that'll help between Nene and Morrison with their minutes.
That may be a good fit. Possibly Boston. Like if you have the right amount, like the right cost, you could probably be like on a deal or something of that nature.
Yeah, Horford. Yeah, running Horford. I think running Horford and Bosh would be pretty interesting.
That would be.
Because you
spread the floor too. Mm-hmm. So that'd be very. That'd be something else, and maybe Portland because Portland needs another big. They have Nurkic. Yosef Nurkic. Because I don't really see like a bad team picking him up because what would be the point in that?
Yeah, you're right. That's true.
Because he's not going to carry your team to the playoffs.
Nah, he's not. He's not going to be the go-to guy. I'm going to pick wild cards because I'm just petty. Cleveland. I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
Only because him and LeBron when they were together, that was a pretty good tandem. Now, how that will impact Kevin Love. Of course, we'll cross the bridge when we get there because he's always came up as the trade talk every so often. Maybe Indiana. I don't know.
I was thinking that too.
I'm kind of wild throwing that one. San Antonio, believe it or not, could be only
Pau Gasol.
I would say, and I'll say San Antonio. Matter of fact, I'll do one better. I'm going to take San Antonio out because I'm going to put 2 because of this being his hometown, Dallas and Houston, because he's from Texas. So between those three states, those 3 teams, I could easily see one of those
Dallas
2.
Too.
Yeah, and Dallas has made it clear rebuilding is priority number 1.
Yeah,
they've been with this year. This year was a unique year for them strictly because you had Dirk Nowitzki kind of in and out playing, not sure how he was going to be, and it was evident that he's running. Father Time is winning, and he got maybe a year left. Harrison Barnes couldn't find his niche until after All-Star break, which was too late by then.
He's still having around 20 a game though.
Yeah, the interesting thing was Harrison Barnes is a good player, but the battle for him was he just didn't. It's like the thing with, and this is something that with you being an LA fan, Houston they already had it, so I can't say for Houston it being the case. Your team has to have an identity. Yeah. Dallas didn't have an identity even with Dirk being there because Dirk was no longer the guy anymore. Dirk can give you a few fadeaways and a few floaters, but he didn't. I don't even think he broke 20. He might have averaged 20, close to, but not a lot. Like when you look at Portland, even with them having a decent season, it was McCollum and Lillard. So
he averaged 14.2.
14.2, yeah. So that was. You look at it and you think, just like you said, with Barnes having his numbers be at a steady incline from last year, especially coming from Golden State. To get kind of the green light, and he went there. It was he knew he was going to get a good payout, especially coming off of his rookie contract. So we'll keep an eye on that story and see how it all pans out with Bosh. I want nothing but the best for him because I really think Chris Bosh has still got a few years left. that he can help if he's at full health.
Yeah.
So a couple of football stories that hit. First one being involving Calvin Johnson, aka Megatron. It didn't look as though, and I guess because we didn't really see it in the limelight, and I wasn't paying any attention to it. He didn't get really a bad relationship, but he didn't feel as though the franchise really gave love to him when he went out, when he bowed out, or when he decided to walk away.
Well, he should have saw this coming.
Yeah, I mean,
because
agreed.
He's not even. I feel like anybody who is a football fan would know that the best player to play for the Detroit Lions is Barry Sanders.
Yeah,
they would say that.
And
when Barry Sanders retired, they ended up taking him to court for his signing bonus, and so he had to pay back his signing bonus back to them when he retired.
Okay,
so I'm saying, like, you're not Barry Sanders.
Yeah,
you can't. If you look at his career, he didn't. You could say he didn't live up to expectations for himself. He only led the league in touchdowns once throughout his career.
Yeah.
Randy Moss did it, I believe, over 3 times. Randy Moss did it over 3 times.
Right.
T.O. did it over 3 times.
Yeah.
Jerry Rice did it over, I know he did it at least over 5 times.
Okay.
So I'm saying, like, he didn't live up to his career, especially for how big he was, and he didn't do what he was what he should have done, even though his name was Megatron and all this other stuff. But
yeah.
I don't know. They didn't even take back his full signing bonus. They only took back a portion of it, too. So I'm saying, like... And when the contract he did sign, it was like 8 years, $132 million, which no other receiver came close to it. That's like the
he got a huge payout.
Yeah, and he ended up retiring.
That was a petty way to say it. But you're right though.
He did, but about like 4 years into it, halfway through it. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying,
I feel like he, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I kept up with the Megatron story, but I didn't. And the only reason I say I didn't was because Detroit is Detroit. Detroit never really... They had one, I would say maybe 1 or 2 relevant seasons where they were like playoff, like in the playoffs, and we talked about it for a while. But other than in his tenure when he was there, they would...
He was there, they went 0-16.
Hey, and I mean, you're expecting. I guess I'm trying to comprehend it and get the idea of what are you expecting this team to do for you that you got to be able to meet them halfway or do something. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he made. I want to make sure I get this right. I think he made 2. It was like 4. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler. If I'm remembering correctly, I might be wrong, and I may have to mid-search because that's going to be in my head trying to replay.
6 times.
He was a 6 Pro Bowl? Okay.
3-time first team All-Pro, 1-time second team All-Pro, led the league in receiving yards twice. Lead the league in receptions once, lead the league in touchdowns once.
Okay.
And so I'm saying he had
decent stats. Like we'll give him that much.
Yeah. But not for like the talent that he was coming out of college. No, he should have done a whole lot better. He should have done a whole lot more.
Yeah. At some point, let's see, the rift or whatever it is, since Johnson doesn't seem to be actively upset with the organization, places a damper on what could be an enjoyable and lucrative time for the Lions. And this is a good question. At some point, Johnson could and should have his number retired, as the Free Press suggested, alongside Barry Sanders, Bobby Lane, Doak Walker, and Joe Schmidt. Johnson has easily earned the right to be called one of the best players in club history. All right, so in the next part of that article, it comes into the question that everyone always talks about, and it's always a $1 million question, because I feel like T.O. is going to be a while before he makes it. Chad Johnson's going to be a while before he makes it. Is he Hall of Fame eligible? I mean, do you feel he's not a first ballot Hall of Fame?
Like I said, there's no way in blank that he should make it to the Hall of Fame before T.O. Like, that's not even a question. He only had 1,000 plus yards receiving in 7 seasons.
Yeah, out of 10.
He only played not one.
He played 10 years, right?
9 seasons.
9. Okay.
He couldn't even play 10 years. Like, he played 9 seasons. Only had 1,000 yards in 7 of them.
7 of them, yeah.
Only had double-digit touchdowns in 4 of them. So I'm saying his career, like...
That's...
Like, if you watch the games that he played, like, he was dominant for parts of the year. Like, he was dominant. Like,
you're not going to take away from his... I mean, his dominance on the field was given.
But that's what means, like, that's why it's like... He was a letdown because he could have done so much more. You expected so much more from him because of how dominant he was in certain games.
Who do you feel will be talked about more as their... Because, I mean, his career is finished.
Like 20 years down the road?
Yeah. Will we be talking about him? I'll do a random Mount Rushmore for wide receivers, and I'm gonna throw a wild card, and I know you're gonna laugh when I give it his name. We got Megatron, Chad Johnson, T.O., Dez Bryant.
No, T.O. for sure.
Okay.
I'll say we'll take on someone that we may be talking about later on, Odell.
Yeah.
His first 3 years, he's had 1,300 yards or more in all 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Calvin Johnson only did that once in his first 3 seasons.
Right.
I'm saying Odell at this point, I'd say that we'd be talking more about him later down the road.
Okay.
Then
you would do Odell before these, even with those names?
Not more than T.O. No, okay. T.O. more down the road.
Okay.
Especially with all his antics and everything like that.
Yeah.
T.O.
Now, one story that I didn't add, and I was bad for doing this because I didn't think about it, is and this will blend into the NFL story, and then we'll rest Calvin Johnson. Hopefully, he will become a Hall of Fame entrant at some point, but it's going to take a couple years. I wouldn't see it on the first ballot. But the NFL, supposedly Chad Johnson, and I wish I'm mad because I normally will have stories like this, but someone shared it from my sports group. Chad Johnson came to the commissioner. And the commissioner was able to, and I think it was already going to be addressed anyway, they revamped some of the rules as far as the allowance of a little bit more fun with touchdown celebrations, because the NFL was very strict about it at one point, to the point where players, they showed us a stat about how much players were getting fined for celebrating based on touchdowns, and it was a lot of money. That just was not even, it wasn't that serious. They've changed as far as group celebrations are allowed. They kind of made it, I think they said dancing is not allowed.
Yeah, celebrating on the ground is allowed.
Yeah.
Using the football as a prop after a touchdown is allowed. They've relaxed a little bit more.
Yeah. And I think that's good. I mean, that's, the NFL was always at a certain point defined as the no fun league. And it's so funny because the moderator of our group, he's a diehard football head. Like, he's Baltimore all the way. And he gets angered about a lot of things with football, but the no fun league, he talks about that to a T, but he's a huge supporter of football. So it's like you gotta hang with your sport despite what does or doesn't work out.
Yeah, it says like the relaxed rules aren't a free for all. It's more like they don't want prolonged celebrations that delay the game.
Yeah,
that'll still be a penalty.
Yeah,
or like celebrations directed at an opponent.
Right, like
if you be a penalty. Like
if you stand at somebody and then you hold the ball in their face or something like that, that would probably be a penalty. Yeah.
What about that? Makes me think about, remember when people used to like be running down the field, like someone's behind you chasing you. Let's say like you used to like hold the ball out behind you.
Deshaun, what's his name? Not Deshaun Stevenson.
Deshaun Jackson.
Deshaun Jackson, yes, he was.
Is that? I don't know if that. I didn't see that.
Would that be allowed?
I just want to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll check it out. I mean, well, I'm probably being petty for what I'm about to say, but hopefully if they can get the ball to him, because I know he's with Tampa Bay this year.
Yeah, I know, that's a scary offense. And
that's going to be interesting. I'm just hoping, I mean, I like Jameis Winston, and I'm always, as a Carolina fan, I have to, and of course, that's, division talk, like, you can't disregard or say Tampa Bay, you don't know what's going to happen, because it's, Jameis Winston has had his rough patches along the way, but it looks like now all the stuff that he went through at Florida State is behind him. Like, he's just kind of progressed and moved forward. And I know this is like side NFL talk, but I always like the division because I'm gonna be blunt in saying it. I see Carolina having a good season, but I don't see Carolina winning the division. And I can't say nothing against Atlanta. Atlanta's gonna be either one or two. And the only reason I'm saying
with this division, it's tough to guess like who's going to do
exactly because it's like New Orleans. I feel like New Orleans is going to kind of be unknown again this year. Mm-hmm. I don't know, and then Tampa Bay, it's a question mark.
I think they might. I think Tampa Bay is going to be on the come up a little bit.
Yeah. So we got Nike getting another one, and it's not Lonzo Ball. We'll talk about his father. I feel like we do the Ball story at least at some random point always. Side note, because I did want to mention this because I promised I would do it. I didn't do it last week too much. I'm not sure if you've been keeping up with, as I call it, the Game of Zones. I showed it to a friend of mine.
I did not watch it this week.
And I showed it to a friend of mine. She's a Game of Thrones fan, so she likes Game of Thrones. So by her watching Game of Zones is fun because if you're not a basketball fan but you like Game of Thrones, you understand the story. Yeah. So I showed her some of the episodes. The episode they did this past Thursday was priceless. They talked about Joel Embiid and trusting the process. And they made it into a scene where Joel Embiid was laid out on the table. Mm-hmm. And I can't think of who. I'm really wanting to know who the guy was that was talking to him because it's relevant. I'm assuming he's who drafted him. And he was just in his ear talking to him, and he's like, "Just trust the process."
Probably Sam Hinkie.
Yeah, it was. Yes, thank you. It was Sam Hinkie. Sam Hinkie was talking to him, and you just see, like at the beginning of the show, they showed Joel Embiid, like I think Kyle Lowry was going for a jump shot, and Joel Embiid blocks a shot, and you see everybody in the crowd cheering, and you see Ben Simmons on crutches. I said, they do this so accurately that it just doesn't even it's not even fair. But they literally just broke down trusting the process. They had Okafor. They showed one skit where they had Okafor watching the door, and Okafor is standing there, and he's like, hold the door, hold the four, Okafor. And then before they could even do anything, they battered the door down. And I was like, okay. That's why, like I said, it's a fun. I'm just Game of Zones. I never would realize would be as funny as it was. Like the first episode of this series set it off for me anyway because they already had what's my man's name, Kevin Durant, when they were doing
when he was going around
going to team, and when they showed him going to the Spurs, and it was like, your soul goes in the box, and I'm just like, what? And it's literally like if you look at the Spurs are a very basic team, so it works for them. Side note, I know, sorry. So Odell Beckham is staying with. He was with Nike anyway, right?
No, I believe he was with. He was in Nike already.
Okay.
Adidas had tried to sign him, and they had time to match the offer, which they did.
Okay, and they gave him a 5-year. I'm sorry, 8 year.
Worth to be more than. No, I believe it was 5 year.
Okay.
5 year to be worth more than $29 million. Incentives could push the deal to an 8 year, $48 million.
Okay, that's not bad. I mean,
that's the highest in NFL. The highest NFL player to be getting paid for a shoe deal.
Yeah. He would. I think it's a big thing. I think that's. I mean, I know like it's kind of like that odd story because a lot of when you look at the NFL. You don't really hear many players who get paid on shoe deals to that extent.
Yeah, I saw something how the highest paid football player for endorsements. I don't even think he's playing. No, he's not even playing anymore. Actually, Peyton Manning. He was paid $12 million a year.
Yeah.
The highest player in the NBA is of course LeBron James, getting paid $55 million a year. Dang. Below that, I believe is like Stephen Curry and like Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Around like $36 million a year.
Okay.
So definitely, it's definitely different for the NBA and the NFL.
Oh yeah.
However, Odell Beckham has another story out around him.
Okay.
Have you heard how he's not been going to the voluntary OTAs?
OTAs, I have not.
So he hasn't been going to the voluntary OTAs.
Okay.
And his coach said how you want all your players to be there, especially great players.
Yeah.
It's time to build fundamentals and communication and chemistry and trust. So you want all your players here, especially the great ones. They facilitate a lot of those things for you. We get to coach who's here. That's what time of year it is.
Right.
Odell Beckham hasn't really said anything much about it.
Mm-hmm.
However, you could say he did say something about it by retweeting a couple people's tweets.
Oh God!
He retweeted one person who said, "I hope Odell Beckham keeps ignoring folks like the New York Post. Mm-hmm. Man, enjoy your time off, and when training camp is mandatory, then show up." Another one, "I'm sick of folks acting like these star athletes must always do what the coach asks." McAdoo, who's the coach of the Giants, wants Odell Beckham at workouts. See him when it's mandatory. And then he also retweeted this other one. "Hey, New York Post, I don't care if Odell Beckham is a star player. If the workouts are voluntary, then he doesn't have to show up. Get over it."
Wow.
And to Odell Beckham's point, though, like, he has been working out. He's been working out with Chris Carter.
Yeah.
He's been working out with him a lot and been doing workouts. He just hasn't showed up yet to the voluntary OTAs, which started this past week.
Yeah. And the key word to that, and I'm just from logic and just general know-how, it's voluntary. You don't have to show up. I mean, it's I get it. It's
voluntary, and then if you don't show up, then
you
you
get
hassled for it. No, you don't get fined. They can't fine you for it.
They can't fine you for it, but they give you
hassle. Like,
you get hassle, aka the media in your throat and all that. All in your business, like why you didn't show up and what's going on.
Exactly.
When it's like you have that. That's why it's a choice. Like I don't know. For some reason, I'm always intrigued by how the media treats stories like that, because it's
let's go to everybody else's day-to-day job. Like, so are you gonna say you get paid salary? So it's not even at the point, like, say you just get paid salary and it's not affecting your job.
Yeah,
you have they gave you vacation for a couple months.
Yep.
Oh, you can it's optional to you, but you can come into work. For a couple weeks. It doesn't change your pay or anything like that. Are you gonna go into work? Like, I don't get it.
It's something being made a big to-do over, but it's not a big deal in how they're treating it. And I think the others
he's doing his job.
Exactly. I mean, he's gonna show up. I mean, I feel like everyone's pointed the finger at him because he didn't have a strong not off season, but he didn't have a strong season closing. But
his last game of the season.
Yeah, but I mean, it's football. Like I think what people don't understand, and I feel like sports, and I think I talked about this when I recorded last week. Fans become more personal with the sport and not really look at it as these people are humans just like we are.
Yeah.
And they look at it and say, well, LeBron has to go out and win, like every year, and it's supposed to be his team. And I'm like, you got other teams that's playing. Same with the Giants. The Giants, I mean, they just did some unique transactions because they got Marshall coming in. They got rid of Cruz. I forgot, who did he go to? Cruz just got picked up by, I'm tempted to say New Orleans, but I might be wrong. Petty moment before I continue. Someone had a story online. I'm glad that the media or the internet teaches you how not to look for information, because they had a story up saying Kaepernick was being picked up. And they said it like, Kaepernick's going to the Seahawks. You clicked on the link and it said, "Hi, I fooled you. It was a fake page." And I said, this is why I always make sure when people get media sources to read and make sure you got the story right.
He went to the Bears.
He went to the Bears. Okay, yeah, he did go. All right, got you. I was like, I don't know why it was. I knew it was an NFC team. I couldn't think of which one, but yeah, he did get picked. Go to them. So sports wise, I'm temporarily done with sports. I'm gonna return with sports very minimally, and I'll explain why. But this is our stuff that we are gonna do. I guess you could say it's a lot of stuff, but it's a unique bit of stuff. The first piece of stuff is the most expensive, more expensive than my laptop that I'm using right now. So there's a company who is known for making very high quality headphones called Audeze or Audeze. I'm hoping I pronounced that right. Someone will correct me at some point if they listen to it. But they made a pair of earbuds, not headphones, just earbuds that you stick in your ear like I'm using now for listening to the podcast.
These make the low twos seem cheap.
Yeah, these make all the beats, everything else that we talk. Yeah, you talk about the Lonzo shoes. Yeah, Lonzo's shoes are not that expensive anymore. But these headphones are $2,495. All right, Music 101. I'm going to say it because I'm guilty of saying it. I spend a lot of money on headphones to some degree, but I'm not. There's a limit and there's also logic. my cap might be 2, and it ain't even, that's if I'm able to finance, because most times I do finance because that's just a smarter option. But anything past $300 or $400, they better be able to put themselves in my ear if they sit on the table. But this is for more. It's an audiophile preference. So people who listen to music, the average everyday person listens to music because they like to listen to music. Mm-hmm. When you're in that audiophile status and you're trying to really listen for like bass and highs and lows, that's when you spend this kind of money. Do I see a CEO of a big company buying a pair of these? Probably not. It's like a half and half. Only because they're nice, but they aren't something that you would sit and wake up and say, all right, I have to buy this.
They're probably built for a direct audience. Like
right.
A certain type of audience.
Yeah, because you have your preferences and your moments of what you need, for its purpose. Mm-hmm. They say that the overall distortion is less than 0.2%. If you have music cranked all the way up, that's more. What's more, each separate unit is matched with plus minus 1 decibel of each other, and there's bass response that ranges from 900 hertz down to 10 hertz. It helping make that overall sound stage as wide as possible. You could pair these with a capable headphone amp to maximize the potential. So you're getting good quality out of them, and then if you hook them up to a mixer, you can get even better sound. But the interesting part, they don't come out until mid-June, so they're not out as of yet. But I wanted to share this as my random odd. So
if you want them, start saving up now.
Start saving up now. That way you can make it to buy them in time. So this was I'm jumping into the gaming world a little bit. This weekend I did initially show it on my tablet. The matchup we were looking at, we were checking out a brief battle of King of Fighters 14. What they do is they have an event in the Mega Center in Chicago called Combo Breaker. It actually started yesterday, and there are, and I'm wanting to say 20. There are nearly 20 events that they have at this venue, and these are all fighting tournaments ranging from Marvel vs. Capcom. I usually try to, and most times I'll bring these up. I'm bringing this up today because, like, usually next week I would say, hey, here's the people who won these tournaments, but there's so many tournaments, breaking them down, we'll be here all year. But yesterday what they did was they had what's called Chicago's Famous Mystery Tournament. And basically they had top fighters participate against each other, and they would play in a random fighting matchup in a game that they don't know what the game could be. One of the matchups was it was a Muppet game that came out on Super NES. Mm-hmm. The games could be on Genesis. It could have been on Nintendo 64. But they, would sit and play the game, and whoever won, it was literally like kitty button mashing. Okay. Side note, because I did share this on my podcast page, one of the girls was performing. She was playing Tekken 7, and she had a joystick. Let me make sure I get it right. She had a joystick. She sat down, played against the guy. She beat him 3-0 in 2 sets and swept him. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, so you're the person that we were talking about on the podcast a few weeks ago where, so you got a joystick? Okay, I don't want to play. I'm going to just go to my room. I don't feel like playing today. And that's because you got folks who attend these events that participate heavily and are dedicated to fighting games. Injustice 2 just came out this week, I want to say. Injustice 2 is one of the events that will be there. I do always like to promote and present because I make sure I don't forget, because I mentioned it to Dimitri and I want to share it with you all. If you have access to Twitch, go to twitch.tv. You can either go to NetherRealm, NETHER Realm, REALM. Team Spooky, he's gonna host they host a few tournaments. I believe the latest one they had on, like I said, was the King of Fighters earlier. They'll probably be going back to Tekken 7. VG Boot Camp, they show all your Smash tournaments, so Smash Melee, Smash 4, or Super Smash Brothers, however you want to term it. That's going to be played on there. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything. I'm always cheering for him, giving the fighting community. I get the fighting game community its attention only because not many people talk about fighting games. Because typically you hear about Halo. For a while, it was Call of Duty. Yeah. So I always try to give the fighting community its fair attention.
And May 11th was when Injustice 2 came out.
Yes, thank you. I knew it was. I was like, I felt like it was like it was recent. I was like, I know it on this week. So that was the same week as
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was around the same time when when I think the basketball NBA
Playgrounds. Yeah,
Playgrounds.
I think it was the day before, I believe.
Yeah. So speaking on that, because I did want to make sure I did return, and I'm glad I triggered that thought. And thank you because you did help me remind it. I did finally get the game. I will admit I can't. If we were to sit and play this while we were doing a podcast, it would have to be a relaxing podcast, not talking about anything serious. Like it would have to be stories that we could just improv because the game is pretty good. Shooting is unique because you're basically having to time your height of when you shoot. I have not gotten to the 12-point status because you have to. That's only done at a certain venue. I think you have to be playing in London. Oh. And if you play against a team, I think it's a 12-point spot on the court or something like that. One of the perks that you get, it says 12-inch. I was trying to figure out for the life of me, what did 12-inch mean? It basically means that while you have that perk, anytime you go for a dunk, you jump 12 inches higher. So I played that, and then I just played. I played a few games. I think I won 2. I lost 1. You get packs for when you win games, but you don't. The good part is it's no microtransactions involved, so you can't like we talked about with NBA 2K where you got to put a whole lot of money into the game. That's not the case with this. So I did like that part of it. So I am the Rockstar fanatic. I know, and this is Dimitri. This is usually Dimitri's chill part, so I always just kind of like take over with this section. So he's not quite on purpose. This is just I'm always because I'm throwing these are like the new stories and the unique situations that come up. But earlier, I want to say earlier this year, there was a big story because they did a trailer. They said, "Oh, Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming out." Red Dead Redemption did a trailer. It's like, oh man, we're ready for Red Dead Redemption 2. It was supposed to drop in fall of this year, and the news smacked everybody in the face and made everybody upset and devastated. And it turns out that we won't be seeing this game until this time next year. Now I'm going to educate everyone on, because they put this in the title of this story. I love Kotaku. I hate it. We can't look at it at work, but that's neither here nor there. But they put Red Dead Redemption 2 delayed to 2008, and they put in parentheses obviously.
Yeah, because it's with Rockstar, right? Rockstar's the one who made it, and they
yes.
say that
Rockstar is known for pushing games back.
Yeah.
If you go back to Grand Theft Auto 5, that was released in September of 2013. It was slated to be released in the spring of that same year, but they pushed it back. And even with it being pushed back, they still didn't have everything out at the time. Because there was, I remember, and this was a midnight release story. I went to GameStop, picked up the game, got home, played. Everybody who was in line didn't realize the factor in you only could play through the storyline. You couldn't play online. They didn't have online available yet. So the online feature came a couple of weeks later. They, they worked with everybody, giving different monies. Hacks happened, things of that sort. But the game here it is now, almost 4 years later, and people still play Grand Theft Auto 5 to the point. Now they have what's called a role-playing server where you can get online and be a certain character and stuff of that sort. But they did leave. They did give us a message saying we are sorry, very sorry for the disappointment that the delay causes, but we're firm believers in delivering a game only when it's ready. We are excited to bring you more details about the game this summer. In the meantime, please enjoy the selection of screenshots for the world, and then they give you a couple of screenshots, and of course, they look like screenshots, so you're not really getting much from a screenshot other than the game looks like it's going to be pretty good. I always say this with games. Gaming now is a little different from the 80s and the 90s because when a developer brings out a game, they can add patches, they can update it. Back before, if a game came out and it was buggy or flawed, you just saw it and you had to just accept it. There wasn't like an update to do for a game. So I'm glad for it. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be one of the first to probably play it and check it out and see what it's all about. So this will probably be like a mix and match story, because I have like, when Dimitri saw me today when I came in, I literally was trying to make sure that I'm like prepared and not just saying, all right, today's artist spotlight and I don't know anything about him. Today's artist spotlight is Talib Kweli. Full name is Talib Kweli Green. So what I'm gonna do, I'll probably ramble off a whole bunch of information, and as we always do, because Dimitri comes with information, I'll be like, where did you? That was in the. Okay, yeah, you read where I stopped reading.
I'll get in where I fit in.
So his full name, we know as in the streets, is known as Talib Kweli. Full name Talib Kweli Green. He was born October 3rd, 1975. He was born in Brooklyn as the oldest of two. His parents were professors. The name Talib means the seeker or student. Last name meaning of truth or knowledge. His literary skills or his knowledge started off in elementary school. He was writing short stories, poems. High school, he jumped it up a little bit, and this is where his outlet of expression was known for doing hip hop. He then was able to meet Mos Def in high school, and between meeting him and DJ High Tech, that generated two groups, which was the Black Star. Black Star was the group that was generated between the three of them. When Mos Def left, they ended up being... I had it and I lost it. I'm going to have it. They were Reflection Eternal. Let's see. Despite not selling millions of albums, the first album that they made, Black Star, it was to help, rap artists, introduce rap artists as well as folks who valued old-fashioned, true-to-form hip-hop. Yeah. The trio generated a unique emphasis on beats, rhymes, and most importantly, life. In 1999, Mos Def, like I said, he went solo, which then generated the Reflection Eternal in 2000. They were known for doing a couple of tracks. Their known hits at that time were Move Something and The Blast, which oddly enough was... They did the single. I listened to that. I was actually listening to that for a little bit before Dimitri got here, and I remember the song heavily because there was a remix that was done with Erykah Badu not too long afterward that she made an appearance on. And then Kweli, from that point, got into his solo career. He dropped in 2002. He dropped Quality. It was a slight change. He collaborated with multiple artists. He was with Kanye West to do Get By. He also did a remix of that song with Jay-Z, and based on that rapport between the two of them, it allowed Jay-Z to reference to Kweli in his single Moment of Clarity. So if you are a Jay-Z fan, go back and listen to Moment of Clarity. You might catch on to that Talib Kweli reference. 2004, Kweli then released A Beautiful Struggle. It caused the expectations to be pretty high. He had collaborations with Mary J. For the song I Try, which was one of my favorites. He collaborated with Anthony Hamilton and Common in The Ghetto Show, along with producers Neptunes, Just Blaze, and Kanye, to name a few. The album did, however, affect his mindset. He did make a decision to split from Universal, and he worked on a mixtape called Right About Now in 2005. Then he collabed with Madlib on Liberation, which is a digital album, which was a new thing back at that time. He then worked on his own label called Blacksmith, and worked on the album Eardrum in 2007. And then he released a mixtape in 2007. 2007 was his busiest year. That's the best way to put it. He did Eardrum. He worked on a mixtape called Focus. He also participated in one of the Chinese musical festivals known as the U Festival. He also was on a show that MTV did called Made, where you basically are trying to make it to be the next whatever. And he helped a individual named Colin Colt become a rap star. In 2008, he worked with Ninth Wonder and Buckshot on The Formula. And he then released a second Reflection Eternal album with Hi-Tech called Revolutions Per Minute. It was recorded after a 10-year hiatus. He was a fighter. Then this is where I get into the random stint. He was a fighter of various justices within the world. He was highly known for addressing racial stereotypes and police brutality. He defined politics as an illusion, and he didn't vote because of it. But he supports different grassroots and different programs of that sort. And that was where I stopped.
No, you're definitely good. That's where I was actually going to jump in. That's actually where I was going to jump in. So we're perfect, actually.
All right.
So, like in 2000, him along with Mos Def organized the Hip Hop for Respect CD.
Okay.
That was in 2000, and a video in 2000.
Yeah.
Which spoke out against what you just said, police brutality, and specifically about the death of Amadou Diallo. At the hands of New York City police. He was killed. And they had 41, I believe they said they had 41 artists in the group.
Yeah.
One artist for each shot that Diallo took by a police officer.
Huh.
Yeah. And with the CD that they didn't make, anything, all of it goes to that foundation.
Yeah. And
it was created just to speak out against because he was an African American, he was an African immigrant.
Yeah.
At that time, it was given to that foundation.
Okay.
It's a nonprofit foundation. But yeah, as you said, he was definitely out there with his politics and his activism. So he was definitely about that. You generally spoke on most of it. In October 1st, 2012, he openly spoke out at a rally at City Hall to urge the NYPD to end the racial profiling with their stop and frisk policy.
Yeah, that was a big thing back then too.
He also, I just had it a second ago. Yeah, in 2005, he got together with Mos Def to raise awareness about the exiled political activist by the name of Assata Shakur.
Yeah.
They gathered at City Hall to demand the federal government to drop the $1 million bounty that was placed on Shakur's head and remove her from the terrorist watch list. Yeah, so he was definitely out there and actually acting, not just speaking, but actually acting on some things that he believed in.
Yeah.
In 2013, he also traveled to Tallahassee to spend a night in the Capitol building with the Dream Defenders, who are a group of students that created a sit-in at the Florida governor's office to protest the state's Stand Your Ground laws. Yep.
Yeah, he definitely was an active member. He was a true definition of like an activist in the community. I mean, it was a recent story that happened, and this is not in anything that I'm sharing. This is 2% of news that I always find because I'm researching like crazy. And I'll tell y'all because I'm transparent with my podcast. I always make sure I try to have, and I ain't gonna say have Dimitri prepared because I had to be prepared too. I make sure we're prepared to do the podcast. So I always give like a rundown of what we're gonna go into a couple of days. So it's not like, all right, well, here's the stories, and I'm just gonna throw some stuff out there, and hopefully we get a story.
Hopefully it sticks.
Yeah, it's usually like we organize and we break it down, and like this one for me was in a coincidence because when I was talking about him or thinking about doing him, like having him as the artist of the week or artist spotlight, he was on TMZ. Someone interviewed him like he was at at the airport. And he was walking, TMZ will ask you anything and everything that they want to ask you because they just don't care. And they asked a question to him about how he feels about Trump, and he just literally was like, I don't like him. I think he's, the worst. He was not fond of Trump. Disclaimer, yes, I'm doing politics. No, I don't care. But basically he just broke down about how there was a big conflict as far as him being president and his knowledge and awareness as the president. And it's just, he's not gonna, I think with him, what I like the most is he doesn't back down from how he feels, where he stands on
My
things.
comment on that, also to that, he said to people, hold artists to accountability, not accountability, just ask artists these types of questions. Yeah. However, don't expect them to give you the answer that you want to hear.
Yes.
However, my thing about that is it goes back to when he says that he thinks politics is an illusion. Yeah. So he refuses to vote.
Right.
So my thing is your vote is kind of you being able to speak. So
yes.
That's your voice. So I feel like if you don't vote, you're technically like you're losing your voice.
In
my opinion, you don't really have much way to talk if you already gave up your vote when you gave up your voice when you didn't vote.
I agree.
That's just my opinion.
No,
I always think that you should go out there and vote.
So, all right, so we'll do this, and I'm gonna talk about it because I had a conversation with someone we work with about this because when the election came last year, I had a lot of people, and even one of my other friends that I'm close to was like, "I'm not voting, and I don't vote," and I said, "I have no problem with that." So I had to get them to understand it and take it away from the presidential side and bring it to close to home. And I said, like here, there was a law, and a lot of people don't know this. And I always, it's voting for me is about education. Yeah. It's not about saying, okay, go vote for the president, and if he doesn't make an impact, then yeah, that's it. Like it's other things that go on that you need to vote for. Yeah. Here, there was a law involving whether you could smoke in restaurants, and people didn't really give much voter input to it. Long story short, it ended up being passed, and you can't smoke in a restaurant. So when people are at most restaurants, it's certain restaurants that I guess will pay the fine, and they work through it, and they say, hey, we have a section that you can go in, and that's where people smoke. But if you go to any restaurant, because at one point, like here, we would go to a restaurant and they'll say smoking or non-smoking. Now, if you go to a restaurant, it's where let me go ahead and get your table, and that's the end of it. So when I broke it down in that regard and said, hey, a lot of people by not voting for it put this law into this place, or when it comes to like how seatbelt laws are handled, things of that sort, that's where voting becomes relevant and key. Not just elections, like even now, like
or towards you could say senators and things.
Exactly, yeah. Because
who represent your state.
Yep.
So
June 13th.
Definitely always go out there and vote and voice your opinion.
Yeah, June 13th. If you are in Virginia, go vote. That is, like I said, I'm going to be more transparent in how I approach the political queue because I know a lot of times when I do podcasts and I'm always like, oh, we're not going to do politics. No, if it's something that's important or something that's like, I'm not sitting here saying y'all need to vote for so and so. Just vote. Put your, make your voice matter. Make your point heard.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we haven't said who to vote for. Just go out there, vote, and vote for your opinion. Voice what you got to say.
And you can always have a voice, just like our next person who, I guess I put him as honorable mention of Ass of the Week because I'm not making him the official Ass of the Week because it really wasn't much of an Ass of the Week story, but it was kind of like it was like, do I want to make this a story?
He mentioned our Hall of Fame Ass of the Week. So our superstar Ass of the Week.
Yeah, we have to keep him. We always have to keep LeVar Ball in the queue because for whatever reason, it just never ends. It never fails. So the latest victim is Ric Flair. And Ric Flair gave a comment to LeVar Ball stating that he's undefeated only because he hasn't run into him.
That's what LeVar Ball said when he was on First Take. He said, I'm undefeated.
Yeah.
So he said, you want me to bring up LeVar Ball? That's too easy, man. A lot of ammunition there. He told Stephen A. Smith, I'm undefeated. And then Ric Flair's like, the only reason he hasn't run it, the only reason why he is because he hasn't run into me. And right. He gave his whoa. He wouldn't even say that to me.
Right. Now, it's an interesting scenario with both LeVar and Ric Flair because they're both. Ric Flair was previously a wrestler. I don't know if he's still. I'm hoping he doesn't wrestle anymore.
He's 68 years old.
Ain't no telling because it's crazy because if you think about it, like what that was 20 years plus. He was in his 40s and was still wrestling. So it's interesting. For him to have done it that long, but he wrestled in his time period, and LeVar Ball, quote unquote, played basketball. So I said quote unquote, but it's a unique situation because Ric Flair, his daughter, participates as she's currently a 4-time Raw Women's Champion. And one-time Diva Champion and one-time NXT Women's Champion. Yeah. So she's been in her, she understands LeVar. He understands LeVar Ball as far as you're an athlete or you were playing a sport and you have a child who's playing a sport or playing an activity and being supportive.
Yeah, he had the quote that he said that kid, meaning like Lonzo Ball, is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
To me, he's putting him in a very uncomfortable position.
Yes.
And now I've lived vicariously through my daughter.
Yeah.
A few times. I'm guilty of it, but come on, I think he's put him in a very difficult position with a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah. We talk, and I feel like we had this conversation like consistently because in your case, because it's a 75 to 80% chance he'll be picked up by LA. We're assuming that because we don't know what can happen.
Unless they trade or something like that, but most likely, yeah.
If he goes there, the bar is set, and the bar was set before he even declared to go to the NBA. This was set once he. Matter of fact, when they lost the game to Kentucky, it was already there. It was skyrocketed. You could almost say, because I find this is what I find coincidental, and I'm saying this about LeVar Ball the Ball brothers as a whole. When Chino Hills, we didn't know who Chino Hills was
until about 2 years ago. Until Alonzo Ball had undefeated. And yeah.
Because you got Lonzo Ball playing for them. They went undefeated during the season. They won state championship. He's already made it clear he's going to UCLA. His brothers have already both declared for UCLA. Mm-hmm. Like LaMelo had declared that he was a freshman.
Yeah, I don't think you can declare. You can only
he verbally committed. And I'm looking forward because I say this all the time. I'm looking forward to seeing how LiAngelo's going to look next year. With UCLA.
He's the worst out of there. Out of their recruits? They have 6 recruits going there. He's the lowest rated out of those.
But he still could make an impact.
No, definitely.
NBA wise, and I know we always project NBA, but we always just talk about it just from that perspective. But the pressure, and I'm saying all that story to say that pressure and expectations were set very high based on their father.
Definitely.
Not because of Lonzo could go out and play, and Lonzo had a good season at UCLA, but we wouldn't hear half of what was going on if it wasn't for LeVar Ball suddenly turning into the 15 minutes of fame guy. Because when he got
said anything about Markelle Fultz right now.
No,
I don't hear anything.
Ain't nobody. Markelle, I think what's good for Markelle Fultz is the more that the media is off of him, the more it just makes it as okay. I can just kind of be the number 1 pick. Mm-hmm. If I have a bad season, like Jaylen Brown. He didn't have the most phenomenal rookie season, but you know about him being in Boston.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, we'll keep it out. That's gonna be a good story. But I did that as I guess you can call it the Ball fail of the week or LeVar fail. But our official ass of the week is gonna go to none other, which I was surprised when I saw this story because I really was like, okay, this is a big company that should kind of know how to handle customers. But Uber handled their customers okay, but as far as their payouts, their drivers got cut short. So they literally had millions of dollars that weren't paid based on an audit. And I want to make sure this is what I'm gonna let you cap because I know you read it and broke it down better than I did.
Yeah, because according to the Uber has an agreement with their drivers, so the ride, so the company's supposed to calculate its cut.
Yep.
So usually 25% of the fare after taxes and other fees is supposed to go towards the drivers.
Yep.
Instead, Uber based its New York commission on the total cost, including taxes and fees.
Wow.
For years, sticking their drivers with the lower fare since the company updated its driver agreement in 2014.
Okay.
So in which case they were with the taxes and whatnot, so they were paying them unjust, right?
Yeah.
So roughly they owe each driver in New York about $900 a piece.
Okay.
But that equals up to about $45 million, that's an extraordinary amount of money.
Oh yeah.
And this isn't the first time that Uber's actually had this trouble. They've had a problem like this previously in the past as well too.
Okay.
As recent as January, actually. In January, they had to pay. The company had to pay $20 million in a settlement with the Federal Trade Commission, admitting that it exaggerated how much drivers could earn on the platform.
Dang.
So, yeah, and then these drivers, they'll end up getting their money back. So if they're still driving right now,
okay,
after the next time like they drive or something of that nature, that's when they'll be entered into their account.
Okay.
If they haven't driven with Uber at least in the last 90 days, they have to like update their account information just to make sure it's verified.
Okay.
Then 7 days later they'll get paid for it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a decent story only because, and I'm gonna be the weird person to talk about Uber for a second because I understand Uber, I understand Lyft. It's a coincidence because if you look at they've kind of taken over the scene probably for like the last 5 to 7 years, give or take. Yeah. And before that, the typical option was you had to call a taxi company, get a taxi to come pick you up, do all the things of that sort. Well, now with technology advancing the way it has, it's been the Uber and Lyft process. Like you got some drivers who literally drive for Uber and Lyft. Like you'll look in their back window and you see both stickers sitting right up there. I saw somebody a few months ago who was driving a car. I think they had an Uber or a Lyft, and they literally had the vehicle like with the stickers on the side. And then you looked inside the car, and it was almost like you could tell that they like this is a business because they got like the lights and they got the music. And I was like, okay, like y'all doing it big. And now it's even gotten so big where companies like Grubhub and Uber Eats, they have that, those. And I know this may not be affiliated with Uber Eats, but it's still part of the business. And it's like, I won't say this is a black eye for Uber, but this is just like, okay, well, what are y'all doing right if you got stuff like this going wrong?
Yeah, they did this back in Philadelphia as well too.
Yeah,
on a lesser amount.
Yeah,
but
still to have that much money to be missed. And then the tough part about it is this is all found because of an audit or just found because of like dropping the ball somewhere.
Yeah,
but that type of money
because of an audit. Yeah,
yeah, but had that kind of money be skipped over or to be missed is not good. So hopefully Uber, this doesn't affect their reputation as bad as some other venues. And before I continue, so this is gonna kind of be like my side segue and my closing like local story that has nothing to do with this podcast. Well, it does, but it doesn't. It'll kind of tie into this. Businesses as a whole, and if you chime in, throw words as needed. We hit our 1.5, which I always love, so we didn't do too bad today. Businesses as a whole have to do better.
Yeah. And
I'm saying this kind of as a sidebar, but it's also kind of a local rant. So yesterday, and I told Dimitri this story before we got on the podcast. Yesterday, a friend of mine, we were looking to meet up, and we wanted to go somewhere. And I was like, yeah, like, let's go. I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out somewhere to go. And I found a spot that I think might be a pretty good spot to check out. So I'm like, all right. It's called KLG Gamers Lounge. Now, I'm promoting them now, but it's kind of too late, and I'll explain why in a minute. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go online. I went on Google, looked it up. They got ratings. They got the Facebook page. People leaving feedback. A lot of people like this place. It shows on Google that they were open. So I'm like, okay. Let me go ahead. Let me go check it out. So I didn't map it because I kind of knew where it was because it's near like a pool hall that I went to. I get there. I look at the building. It's dark. Didn't think anything of it. Then I realized when you show the pictures of the building, they had a sign that was up there. The sign's gone. So then I walk up to the building. It's nothing inside. Like no TVs, no systems, no nothing. So I sit in the car and I process it. And then I'm thinking, all right, let me go and look at something. And I looked on their site, and they're talking about they had an auction or they were doing a yard sale back on April the 1st. So I was like, wait, so it's been closed this long, and I'm just knowing about this? So I'm tying that story into tying about other companies because there are a lot of local businesses here that have had success, and it looks like it would work and it would be a promise or a dream or something worthwhile. And then within a couple of months, a couple of years, it's gone. I know Uber isn't in that category of being here and gone because they've been out for years and they're a bigger company. But if you go get a business and you go do something, have your shit together. Like that's my number one request. Or let alone if something ain't work out or y'all won't meant to do it, then don't do it. And I'm gonna have a conversation with Dimitri offline about something because it's kind of made options for me a lot more understanding and learning what people are doing right and what people are doing wrong. So. I do always love doing these because I swear it's getting more and more fun. Give me some more time. I'm slowly getting the page together. I'm also working on some stuff. Might be rebranding the logo soon. Gonna work on that and get that going. But before we close, Dimitri, you got anything for the audience before we cap off?
No, we'll try to do better next time.
We will try to do.
Thank you if you stayed with us during this.
I through this long process, and luckily he hung around this time since LA did get their second pick. So, with that being said, like I said, Past Podcast signing out. Always keep tuning in. We got more shows in store. Might be a fun little setup next week. I'll get more breakdowns on Battle NBA Playground because I probably have played a little bit more. So until next time, y'all take it easy. Did you make it to the end of the episode? If so, I do appreciate you listening and tuning in. These episodes get more and more valuable, and I do appreciate everyone taking time to sit down and listen to the episode. Whether you're actually listening to it once it's uploaded on Spreaker.com/Brite Podcast, or if you're downloading it and listening to it on your own convenience. If you want to check out any previous episodes, just check out that page. And if you'd like to inquire or provide any information or feedback or suggestions toward the podcast, please send those emails to pastpodcastbt@gmail.com. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Enjoy your day. Have a good week and be positive.